This is Mary Nichols speaking to you from my home in Los Angeles. And my job this morning is to welcome you to this conference. I believe it's the first of its kind of an interdisciplinary climate science conference between colleagues in Germany and in the US, and especially in California and Baden-Württemberg, who have been partners in the Under Two Coalition for at least a decade and maybe more. Um, I want to say a couple words to you about the purpose of your meeting, or at least what I hope will happen, which of course includes the pleasure and the benefit of just getting to know each other better. But this meeting is taking place at a time when we in the US are emerging from a very dark period of hostility and attack on science, with climate science not being the only form or the only use of science, but certainly one of those that was most facing attack from our previous administration in Washington, D.C. And I remember very clearly in 2018 joining friends from around the Southern California area who were part of a national March for Science. It was exhilarating, but also shocking then to think that you would need to have a march for science. But we knew from the actions of the Trump administration, beginning with the almost instantaneous announcement that he was going to take the United States out of the Paris Agreement, that this was not going to be a time when there was going to be positive momentum. I don't think we had any idea how bad it was going to be in terms of uh, the information that existed even in public websites being taken down, and communications and reports edited so that references even to the term climate change were eradicated. This is the kind of behavior that, looking back at it, you think, how were we even tolerating this kind of this kind of truly not just this is not just like an aberration or a deviation. It's a pretty fundamental assault on all kinds of information as used in the public policy sphere. I also say that at one time, before I came to my post at the Air Resources Board and had the opportunity to be in charge of California's climate planning and regulatory activities, to lead an Institute of the Environment and Sustainability at UCLA. My academic training is as a lawyer, which means I know a lot about process and don't have to know much of anything about substance, because I'm expected to learn enough for whatever it is that I'm working on at the time. But I remember very clearly that some of my colleagues in this interdisciplinary institute that I'd been invited to come and help to grow, uh, were truly of the belief that um, their job was to do the science and then present it to policymakers, social scientists, but really they meant, anybody who might be in a position to decide what to do with the information, and then simply assume that we would do the right thing. And when that didn't happen, they were very frustrated and annoyed, but didn't necessarily feel that it was their job to do more than just say, look, we've got the science now, you go act on it, make something happen. Well, of course, that has a rocky history when it comes to climate. And now we're facing, even as we speak, a worldwide pandemic, which had been predicted and even to some degree prepared for, but not very much. And at the same time, we were seeing popular novels and movies that might depict how a virus could take over the planet. Um, we in the US were dismantling really piece by piece our public health system to the point where now here in California, we're having a very hard time. We'll get there, but we're having a hard time even using the vaccines that have been created and approved for this purpose. We're having a hard time actually getting them to the people that everyone agrees need them the most. And we're facing enormous skepticism on the part of the public about whether the vaccines are safe or useful. And a good part of that is because of lack of belief that has been fed systematically over years in many fringe and even to some degree mainstream media about whether you can trust what the government tells you when it comes to issues that are essentially science issues. So those of you who are gathered in this meeting have a really big job to do in order to help turn this around. And I know you are among the most committed people out there when it comes to having dedicated your professional lives and careers to the issues of climate science, and that this is not a fad or a new thing by any means. You've been working at this for a long time. But again, looking back a little bit to our history, when think of it as a somewhat of a period of a very positive momentum when we were founding the Under Two coalition, and when we went to Paris, and the world at one time appeared to actually be in agreement that all the governments that belong to the United Nations would agree that they would actually act on the information that they had. Even going back to that point, we still had silos in which people were advocating for their own approach towards what the solutions might be. And we can't afford that anymore. We've lost too much time already. We all need to be engaged, I think, not only in advocating for our particular discipline or our particular view of what the solution should be, but also in moving on any agenda that may have the potential for success. And so, in that spirit, I am hoping that with this group of people who represent such a broad array of expertise, that you will be able to not just come forward with an agenda for what you want to do, but also that you'll be able to think creatively about how you can link with other groups and other sectors of society that are maybe just now waking up to the problem, as well as to the young people who are in many cases your students or are just beginning to wake up to these issues and to demand action, because we won't be able to succeed if we can't have a broad alliance. So starting with the California Baden-Württemberg Alliance, let's move forward.